Clemson has now filed a complaint against the ACC.
What was the rush, you think? Golly, guys.
Is Pat Forty busily typing out the column in which he blames now Clemson for all the wrongs in college football, or is he writing the apology piece about
I
how?
can promise you it ain't the second one.
Yeah, you don't think so?
So you now had Florida State is suing together the ACC. Clemson is now suing together the ACC. North Carolina's administration put out statements about a month ago that were very similar to everything Florida State said a year ago.
Correct.
They're clearly interested in trying to get out of the conference. So, yeah, it's probably not all Florida State's fault. It's not all Florida State being greedy.
You know, the South Park, and it's gone.
Yeah.
That's where Jim Phillips is at today, buddy. We're done here, right? There is an air of inevitability that is set here in the ACC. So it does get interesting what happens. By the way, one thing I do like about the Clemson complaint is they note in there and declare before the court they did not agree with the ACC suing Florida State. They said that was wrong.
They didn't even get a chance to vote on it.
They didn't get a chance to vote.
What they said in the complaint.
That's exactly what they said.
And that whole thing has been fascinating because the ACC filed a lawsuit against Florida State before Florida State did, preempted them. Then Florida State pointed out, hey, you guys, it's in your bylaws that you have to get all the schools to agree to sue a member school or do any kind of legal action.
That's right.
So then they came back and filed another lawsuit and said, oh, okay, we asked everybody this time. But it turns out maybe they didn't ask everybody that time.
Clemson said no, we didn't get to vote on it, and we weren't for it. So there you go. Yeah, I mean, we already knew that this is where this was headed. Maybe it speeds things along. I don't know. I do wonder what the ACC's next move is. I mean, your two biggest brands today are now aligned, and we think the third is North Carolina, and they're aligned as well.
I think we should do a March Madness bracket, picking like which schools are next to join. Who are going to replace?
Yeah, on the
Florida
level
State,
of
Clemson.
Stanford and Cal and SMU.
Yeah, who's the ACC go after next? I threw out there maybe Yale and Princeton.
What about Rice?
Some people said maybe Dartmouth.
Rice is a good one.
Rice is in the Houston area, right?
Rice is a good one. Travel partner with SMU.
Yeah.
Rice is not bad.
Maybe MIT. Do they play football?
You think they'll go after my old ETSU? Lure them from the Southern Conference.
I don't know if they have the academic standards. That's what we're worried about.
That's what we're doing. We're doing.
Really? I think ETSU stacks up against Louisville.
Hey, don't talk down about Louisville.
You think Louisville's trying to hang out in this conference?
Are they the next to sue? I don't think they have enough gravitas.
But it's look, I wasn't joking about it. For the last 2 months, I was getting genuinely angry at Clemson for
I know you were.
Just sheer silence, nothing, no whispers or anything, just not saying a word about it. But this is Florida State is one thing, and it's a big one. It's a big one thing. Now you have the number 2 marquee program, maybe in some people's eyes, the marquee program because of the success they've had on the field the last half decade or decade. Now they're in it too. That is the death knell of the conference, clearly, and we knew it was going this way anyway. But it's also reassuring to know they've done it. They pulled the trigger finally, and they are on your team. You two are in lockstep. It would appear that they're on Florida State's team or Florida State's on their team, and the ACC can't survive this. Now they have the two biggest schools in the conference.
Well, they can survive it in whatever way,
but not as form they're going to be. Not in the current iteration that it is. They're gone. They're done. They're not a football conference anymore. And there's going to be other schools that probably follow Clemson's. It's going to be like Tiger Woods women. There was one, and the next thing you knew, there were 9.
Suddenly, the Shoney's waitress was not that special anymore.
No, it was Perkins.
Perkins. Are you sure there wasn't a Shoney's?
Probably. By law of averages, probably there was.
He was going through all the fast food breakfast joints.
But it also becomes a question of how many people are going to be fighting with the ACC in terms of what is their strength in terms of combating these lawsuits. Because, I think the three of us and most people listening to this have thought for a long time that the end is probably going to be a negotiation. Like, this isn't going to be a judge making this decision.
Right.
There may be some decisions, but it'll be settled at some point. And now you've got another, gorilla. There's the 2 800-pound gorillas in the conference now are suing to get out. At what point do those other schools just say, okay, you know what, let's just come up with $1 and get this over with?
If you do big picture stuff, though, what I always wonder about things like this is, okay, Clemson moves forward. We're talking about North Carolina and perhaps others doing the same. What is ESPN and what is Fox doing right now? Yeah. Because now we're wrestling over major assets. That's what this is, right? A race to grab the remaining assets of big-time college football. That's all this is.
Yeah.
So if you're ESPN and it's a lost cause, because the ACC network was an asset for you.
And the ACC network is finally going to get what they wanted to be.
Yeah.
Lacrosse all the time.
Yeah.
Field hockey and lacrosse 24/7.
Finally.
Imagine the joy in their hearts today.
Yeah.
That's right, Clemson, take it on down the road. Your bitch-ass lacrosse team. Let's go. We get to bring in Harvard. Yes.
That's right. Johns Hopkins.
Yeah, let's go. Let's
Johns
do this
Hopkins is
thing.
a good one.
Field hockey all day long, baby. But yeah, so like I wonder, is the scramble really the wrestling behind closed doors? Is ESPN going to acquiesce now and realize, well, it's over. This is done. Everybody has joined the cause. I'd rather have, if I'm them, North Carolina, Clemson, Florida State, say Miami, whomever else you want to name, in the SEC for us, than the Big Ten continuing planting flags in our backyard here and becoming a coast-to-coast conference with roots in the South to boot. I mean, that's where the fight is. This is the war.
They're planning the register sausage.
I like it.
I think
I
that's
like
what
it.
they're
Fair
doing.
enough.
Could you, as ESPN,
like Dom
though,
foul poles? Yes.
could you, as ESPN, though, if you really don't want to go, you could keep these teams in the ACC. I mean, it would take a lot of money, but you could do it. You could raise their revenue per year on par with the SEC, since they're all like, if you want to keep Florida State and Clemson as your property for sure, without going through the anguish of a lawsuit and everything,
equal of the Big Ten and the SEC.
I mean, you could do it. It's not out of ESPN could say no. The ACC is going to get the same amount of money that the SEC is. Now the
never
SEC
do that,
would not like that.
Well, they'll never do that. But what they could do is say, we'll give those schools more money that's more equitable for what they brought.
Schools that
we'll give them what we give Vanderbilt to stay in the ACC, and then then you have a real. We don't want that. Obviously, we all, every Florida State fan and everybody that covers Florida State wants out. But if ESPN's really serious about it, there's a chance that these lawsuits, there could be an outcome we're not even thinking about that would keep everybody kind of happy and where they are.
If you want to go conspiratorial, you could say this is already decided.
You could definitely make a case that Clemson finally pulling the trigger may have gotten some assurance.
I have a suspicion, don't you, Ira, that we know that this is, I mean, you continue to hear it in circles of, in college football circles, that this has already kind of been decided. I mean, you're not going to take a chance at this point if you're in a war with Fox and ESPN of losing major assets. You're going to have to pull the plug on something, and I think the ACC is what they're pulling the plug on.
Well, and you have to wonder if you're just kind of trying to figure out how the pieces could play. If Florida State felt like they had if we're going with the premise, Florida State felt like they were going to have an offer from the Big Ten.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't know yet whether or not the SEC was going to counter to try to protect this turf. Clemson is not likely a target for the Big Ten. I mean, they would not seem to be a major target for the Big Ten. We'll see, but it makes you wonder if maybe now ESPN and the SEC have said, you know what, we can't lose these schools. We can't let the Big Ten come down here, and maybe we'll be more defensive. We'll see. We'll see how it all plays out. It's all really new.
I think, I think when you say Clemson, are you just talking about because the academic standing, or because they're a huge football?
That's a big.
They're a huge football.
Yeah, the academics is part of it.
But you think about, and I've made this point for 8 months now, a conference that adds Florida State and Clemson to a conference that already has USC, Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, Wisconsin, Oregon. Like, you're on par with the SEC. Like, the Big Ten would be on par or maybe a little above it if you add Florida State and Clemson.
Yeah, I just have never heard at any point. I'm not really heard, and maybe it's out there. I mean, I'm not talking to different people. I've not heard a lot of people say, yeah, Clemson would have a home in the Big Ten.
But do we think they're locked and loaded together?
Florida State and Clemson? Not anymore, I don't think. They used to be. I don't know if they are anymore.
Right. Yeah, I think they're both come hell or high water, get out of here, go make money. This is like, we have to be part of the group that eats from the money trough.